let's go to the top again. I'm kind of bouncing between here, not to make it so that, especially I don't want people to just tune out after we do the G2 Fnatic part. So I'm going to bounce between, exactly. So I think let's do the Fnatic one, because I want to give everyone everyone knows it's Master. I like to give a little bit of a peek behind the curtain so you can see the fucking Wizard of Oz who's really pulling all the levers, etc. Right? When I overhype these teams, Nymera, like where Forgiven comes back to Schalke and everyone's like, well, how could you ever think he's going to be good? He hasn't played years. Or how about when Upset was on Vitality and then on Karmine Corp? They think, oh, you're just glazing these players. Right, guys, I don't claim to have the best connections in the scene. I'm also not the guy who's like a super social guy. So I'm not DMing people after every game. But when people are like long-term players, especially the ones that are smart and can sort of see I'm the guy who's like all in on their stock and they know that I'm going to sort of tell their story, I do get the stories from those people before the splits if they're owning all the scrims. So a lot of people won't know. Schalke was actually one of the best scrim teams before that dreaded split where they lost all the games. Believe it or not, Karmine Corp, actually, even with Sakan and Cabochard, was winning scrims before last winter. And I can tell you what, even though Vitality came last place, they were fucking winning scrims. Like, I'm sorry, if I know that, I'm not going to go, they're complete shit like this last game. They'll never do anything. That's actually a moment where it's like, mate, if they can get it together, it's plausible. Again, I'm not doing a scrim box like they have to be the best team, but there's something there. There's something going on behind the scenes, right? It's understandably, I am hyped for this fucking Fnatic team. As you say, all the markers behind the scenes are all fucking pointing up. Everyone clearly seems to think the roster's good. By the way, the players themselves look like they fuck with this mix. Grabs looks, I mean, he's done about 50 tweets, guys. He looks super re-energized to be back with the big names and have a chance to prove himself, etc. Yeah, obviously, you look at the roster, and there's some interesting ones there. What will Upset and Mickey X look like? You hope it'll be Upset and Hylissang at their peak. Let's see. Obviously, Razork and Humanoid. Listen, I've realised 2 years ago, because they can never move that Humanoid contract, and you'd be a moron to actually ask for it in another org. Basically, if you're in Fnatic, every day you have to repeat to yourself like some 1984 slogan, like, Razork and Humanoid synergy is fine, and was never a problem, and never will be a problem, because you'd just be depressed otherwise. So at this point in time, you've just accepted whatever they're going to give you, you're going to take it, and you're just going to hope the rest of the squad works. So I have to say, I do really think this team will be in the finals. I think there will be a top 2 team. I also, by the way, I don't care what anyone says, I do rate Grabs. I do think he's good. I think part of his problem, by the way, is he actually did, in my opinion, he tried to do what I just said about the owner guy, and that's why it didn't work. He went from being the guy, if you want to use football terminology, who is like a fucking man management guy. If you give him the superstars, think about when Zidane was at like Real Madrid, he just had the best team already. Tell you what, he could manage those big egos and find when to motivate people. But the problem is, some people as managers and coaches aren't the guy who takes the lesser players and the people you haven't heard of and works from. Some people are suited elsewhere. So this is, for me, Grabs is back where he belongs. He should have a team like this where his job for me is keep people's egos in check, tell people when they're not going to get their picks and stuff, and we're going to play through other picks. That's its own task and it's its own skill set. It's just a very different skill set from Peter Don and fucking Mac and Pad and the people who get the rookies and shape them. So I actually think, for me, across the board, there are possible flaws, but I just don't really. I think Fnatic has to be one of the best teams in this league, mate. It just looks like a great group of players for me.
I think there is an argument to say if Fnatic don't win any split this year, they have failed. I think when you put this amount of talent
Absolutely.
I mean, the one caveat to that is that, not all of these players are at peak. But I look at the roster, I look at the players on there, and I look at the coaching staff. The project you put together, if you do not win with G2 looking like, you're having to rebuild as well, if you don't win a single split, I think this team, something's gone wrong with this team. Now, the problem with the week 1 results is that there's a lot of mud in the water because there's a game against Skarner and a game with Skarner. Champion's not fair. If that champion's in a game, really doesn't tell you much about the team. It's 100% ban rate in LPL, and I think it's 100% win rate and presence in LCK as well. Maybe it's missed one game or something. Champions is absolutely busted. So yeah, that 2 out of the 3 games, not telling us that much. But yeah, from the internal scrim bucks that we're hearing about, yeah, this team is looking very, very good. And I think a huge thing which has come through from the gameplay I've seen so far is, jungle support's working well together. But importantly, whenever Razork is going for something, actually Upset is in the pocket incredibly well. And that's a big thing because one of the biggest criticisms of Upset on Karmine Core was he just bails out of fights too early because he had
trust issues, mate. He really did.
Yeah, no, and you can kind of understand that. It's like,
sure,
if your team is losing, do you just cut the losses early, or do you just try and fight to get something out of it? And obviously that was not working very well on Karmine Core, and he would just never commit to anything because he didn't believe in any of the fights that were going to be won. Because it looks like, Rajcula is choosing good angles, Upset is actually ride or dying with him. And he's just jumping over the wall as the Ezreal. And he had a fantastic Ezreal game. I'm trying to remember what his other games were as well. But, they had some really good kind of follow-up plays. Yeah, the game against Vitality, the laning phase when, maybe not the best I've ever seen with that. But, yeah, no, I was happy with how he was playing. I think the one question on this roster is Oscar Renan. That's the one guy I'm like, okay, if things go to a top level, can things fall apart? Yeah, a little bit. He just occasionally has just a duff game. He has great games too. He has lane diffed, Broken Blade. He had that one game where he absolutely slaughtered 369 at MSI as well. So he has an upper ceiling, which is pretty good. I think if he has like an aggressive lane state where he can kind of push an advantage, he's very good. That's the one person I think you have to plan around and hide his weaknesses a bit. But hopefully that's something as a team they can do. And then Humanoid needs to just really take things seriously. Someone's got to lock him in just mentally. If that happens, I think Fnatic should be absolutely a top team. And if they're not, I don't know if it's going to get better for you. But like Fnatic fans have been waiting a hell of a long time. You've got a great project coming together here with G2 also rebuilding for a little bit now. This is the time to strike. We'll see what happens in week 2. Who are they facing in week 2? I should have checked that before this. Rogue should be an easy win. G2 on the second day, and then BDS. So yeah, the Fnatic G2 one, slam that one out, get yourself some momentum, and this team should be really gunning for finals, I think.
I'm not even on some corp angle with Humanoid, by the way. First of all, I'll just say this because I can do things like this. I've heard from people who played with him, mate, he just doesn't give a fuck. And not necessarily, listen, some people like it and think it's in a good way. He doesn't get affected by the... I'll tell you what, some people think it was negative, Nightmare, and they really just think he's just whatever. Don't give a fuck. I think I am elite, but, whatever, there's only me and Caps. It's one of those, bullshit angles to me. And I don't know how much to say. Fuck it, I'll say it. I've even heard at one point in the past, he said to other players, lol, I might just... This was back when there was money there, by the way. Lol, I'll probably just go to LCS in a year or two anyway and just get fucking millions of dollars, which is not what you want to hear when, if I ask fans, the last few years they'd have been telling me he's next in the lineage of Caps, to be a fucking champion and make Fnatic back on top. But here's the good news. He's been doing this the last 3 years. I don't have to delude myself down here. I'll take the Humanoid that was the last few years because in this team, it's not about Humanoid being the MVP of the league. This team is about Humanoid. Give me the 1 out of 3 carry games, the 1 out of 3 all right games, and you can have that 1 out of 3 games where you play like shit like you did in this first week, mate. You could do that one. Because in this team, what is different about this one from last year is everyone knows after the summer split in that first time that Noah joined, he never made it to that playoffs and beyond. Then he had all these issues on pressure, and he clearly had fucking times where he himself, by the way, wouldn't go into fights or he would misstep and die. The difference is Razork is a demon. He is fucking really good. And I agree with you. Upset knows which way his bread's buttered, mate. He knows that this is the guy that can get me that LEC title, that status. So if those two players play like carries, I think the floor of the team should be pretty good. And that's without even mentioning who knows what Mickey X's level can be. That is the sort of play. It's why if you don't know, talking to the fans here, people will just endlessly gamble on Hillsang. Because if he ever has a split back again, you're going to look like a genius, aren't you? So when you're Mickey X, you don't care how many times you entered last year. You just look, Mickey, it's a different team, blah, blah, blah. And then you just hope you get the Mickey X that went to XL and then came back to G2 the first time. So I think the potential for this team is really good, even with the flaws. The flaws can almost coexist and still be good, I think.
I really hope that Jojo coming into the league and being a laning specialist and then kind of slapping Humanoid can wake Humanoid up. I hope that happens. Sometimes... Yeah, and if Humanoid is, I've not necessarily heard personally myself, but if he is not exactly mentally checked and it's it's just me and Caps and whatever, and he only turns up for games against Caps, or if that's the situation, hopefully having another player like that can unlock that a little bit too. Because at the end of the day, I think all of us want the best version of all of our players because actually we're here for the best League of Legends.
Absolutely.
And I'm hoping that Mickey, after getting kicked from G2, does the same thing he did on XL back in the day and has actually a very good split and he can start turning up too. Because if that happens for both these players, then as I was saying, Fnatic should really be looking at trophies.
And I will just tell you, I actually know Mickey X a bit. He's one of the people I have talked to. And I can tell you, this is a guy, and Upset loves this, by the way. He is the guy who will duo queue with his fucking ADC all the time if you want to. And that is actually underrated in the modern day. There are some players just don't do that, or they just don't want to. They want to play the script. So I actually love when players do that, because I think that's how you get that, Upset Hillsang with the best of the West 2021 type form. That's how you get that fucking synergy, where they were one of the only Western bot lanes, if you remember, in 2022, could even play Lucian Army. They had something to their game. So I'm hoping we can just have a repeat of that. So yeah, I'm hyped on Fnatic, mate. I'm kind of in on them. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.